have so many questions for you. Now, one of those is, if you were to, I guess this is my brain thinking calculations and numbers. If you were to actually track what you currently eat,
No.
no, but I'm just kind of thinking, and
Yeah.
comparing that to your previous diet, that one that you used to do, whether it was carnivore or ketogenic, would you think, even though you're adding in some fasting in there and everything, but that's probably the style that you have been implementing for a long time anyways. When you look at your biofeedback as well, hunger, cravings, appetite, energy, mood, libido, do you see a difference in your biofeedback beyond knowing that your output is better, your training is a lot more efficient, and you can go an extra mile training a lot harder? So we have the biofeedback. Have you noticed a difference in these aspects, energy, mood, sleep quality, anything in that regards? And the second question of that is, or the second part of that question would be, if you were to match for calories, I know you haven't tracked, but would you probably say that because you're adding in that fasting in there and you're likely just eating ad libitum or until you're full, maybe once, twice a day? Do you feel like you could probably be eating almost the same, if not less, especially now that you're adding in some extra foods with fiber, carbohydrates, you have potentially less cravings, and you probably end up eating likely less without even trying. And even if you're not trying to, your body, you end up being in a slight calorie deficit anyway because you're not eating as much as before, perhaps. Given the fact that carbohydrates are lower in energy density compared to fats. So even if you had the same meal side by side, high fat foods could be probably even less volume and a lot more fat and a lot more calories compared to like a huge plate of fruits, veggies, a lot of volume. Like I do personally eat like a kilo of vegetables and I don't go over 300 calories. And like I feel full, feel satiated, and that allows me to eat a lot. At least mentally, I feel like I'm eating a lot, but I'm not eating that many calories, and that allows me to get lean a lot faster than if I was eating like just a plate of dates and nuts and seeds and stuff like that, that I would just be hungry by the minute.
You're pulling me into a conversation that I do not like because I don't like calories. I don't like the
I know.
conversation. But I think that calories can be important in this sense. Like if you just choose the right foods, then there's not much to talk about. So people need to choose. People need to make really good food choices. And this is something I've been talking about for over a decade. Is everything is ruled by food choices. You know what we have to count and track when we make excellent food choices? Nothing. All you'll keep track of is your progress. You're just going to be making progress. You're just going to be getting in better and better shape. Now, if you're somebody that's already really lean, then yes, there might be like an equation in there where it might be helpful to you to really try to find out what's the exact way for me to lose body fat at this point because I only have like 10 pounds of fat to lose. But most people aren't in that category. I think that food choices are the most important thing that we can teach people. And so I would say you can be on the fat side or you can be on the carb side. But if you're going to be on a side, then you have to, like, in my opinion, I think you have to curtail to that particular side of things. Now, there is middle ground, but there's only middle ground when you get your metabolism to be well, when you get your metabolism to be in a good state, you get your metabolism like working properly. The only way to get your metabolism to work properly is to not be so fat. So people really need to lose a lot of body fat sometimes in order just to have their metabolism even working correctly, because people are very much overweight. So it might take somebody, like I've said before to people, like you need to get like healthy before you can really get into like weight loss and body composition, because it's going to take you a while. You know, somebody has been like recklessly eating for years. They don't even really think about their food hardly at all. And then now they're like, you know, really paying more attention to it, and they're starting to lose some weight. As they lose some weight, their metabolism, a lot of their negative markers that they might have on their blood work, those should be improving as they're losing weight. Time and time again, we've seen that people have much improved mortality regardless of how they lost their weight. It really doesn't matter the style of diet, and I think that's pretty interesting. There probably still needs to be a little bit more research on that kind of stuff, but it doesn't seem to matter whether someone was eating a lot of fat or even if somebody was in between and they just weren't over consuming food. To your point about, you know, whether I'm on a, you know, diet that is, you know, similar in calories, I would say like yes. I mean, I'm 48 years old and I've been, you know, messing around with diets since I was like probably around 15. I started lifting when I was like 12, and then started to learn more and more as I got in deeper into strength training and fitness. And so my body is very well aware of like what it's eating, and it's, your body's like a computer. Your body's going to find, that's why people do count and track calories, because your body's going to find those calories somewhere. It's going to push you and encourage you to find those calories, almost like you are somebody that's like indestructible in a horror film where you can't be killed. Your hunger, in some ways, it can't be completely killed. But over time, when you mess around with things like fasting, and when you try different protocols, and when you start to make better food choices, your hunger over time gets a little bit more self-regulated. But if I'm being honest, for me, I love food, and I would just probably just want to eat almost all day. I do eat quite a bit. So like today was a little bit different than normal. But most days I have breakfast, and then most days I'll eat like 3 or 4 times in a day, maybe have a protein shake or something like that, depending on the day, or some sort of like smaller meal. So there's a decent amount of like food coming in. But as to your point, it's not like I'm eating way more energy. Um, but I am consuming a lot. Like I'll eat like a pound of meat and like 2 cups of rice or something, like in a sitting, and then maybe a few hours later I might eat something similar again. So it feels like I'm consuming this like astronomical amount of food because of your point about the volume. Now, I also want to say that there's a whole entire field of people that talk about bioenergetics, and this bioenergetic sphere, and this Ray Peat sphere of people. They all are talking about the same thing. They're all talking about trying to increase their metabolic rate and have the body run hotter. And so the thing that drives me nuts about calories is almost every single time people count them, they're trying to be in a caloric deficit. And it drives me insane, because that over time starts to make your metabolism go right down along with it. So I'd rather see people concentrate on something different than just trying to put their calories to the floor. Because I can't tell you how many people I know how many men I know that are on like 1,800 calories a day. And I'm like, there's CrossFit chicks, they eat double the amount of food that you're eating, and they're in way better shape than you. It's because their metabolism has just gotten to be, you know, quote unquote, slow. Like they're just not efficient with the energy they're consuming. And we see it a lot with women too, where it's just like they're on this perpetual diet all the time, and they're not really giving themselves opportunities to, I guess, have things that would be like pro metabolic. And I haven't really seen in this industry, I haven't seen that much talk about that in the past. And I think now that stuff's finally coming to the surface. And I think learning more about that, I think, could really be helpful to helping people get the bodies that they want.
I hear you, and I agree with you in terms of that chronic dieting, how that affects your metabolic rate, and how many women, even men, nowadays we see them in these calories that they shouldn't be eating that low to maintain their weight. I see that as a trend in chronic dieters, people that have been dieting for a long, long time, and they haven't given themselves the chance to actually find out what a more normal way of eating would be. Now, to the point of thinking about calorie counting or tracking, it doesn't have to be that if you track, you are in a calorie deficit, because for some people, that would be just a way to monitor or track the numbers without necessarily trying to be in a calorie deficit, because it's just a matter of knowing what your numbers are. Some people are perhaps a lot more intentional about their calories. I personally think there is a point where you no longer need to track, because you know exactly how much your body needs, and you don't need to be like be super detailed with how many grams you eat here and there, because you tend to learn how to auto regulate. Your appetite is a lot more consistent, and you rightly said it. Food choices, if your food choices are wise, you eat a decent amount of fiber, protein, and you are eating what you enjoy, and you somehow maintain a relatively consistent structure, and you're not like randomly eating, snacking here and there, it is very likely that you will be able to regulate your appetite and your energy intake without tracking at all, because that's what a long-term intuitive eater gets to do over years of knowing and experimenting. Like you have dieted so many times and experimented with so many things. You fucking know your body. You know your intake, you know your appetite, you know when you're hungry, you know when you're full, and you're very in tune with your body. But as you also said, there are people that have no fucking clue what a food good food choice and a good nutrition would look like. So just getting started to learn, just getting the right foods in their body, knowing what is good for their better energy, better output, and knowing how to make some swaps and learning habits that then teach them what is good for auto regulating better their appetite, the hunger, the satiety, the output, the energy, all of those things. So I think you are certainly in the right path when you mention all of these things, but also bear in mind that you have been doing this for so long that is you're very in tune with your body, so you know how to listen to it. Now, going back to my first question, how do you feel like is your biofeedback right now compared to before? Like, do you feel like different, better when it comes to hunger, appetite, satiety, sleep quality, libido, um, energy output, all of these different things? Do you feel any difference, positive, negative?
There's definitely a difference in like eating, simple carbohydrates. That kind of it can both make you feel like revved up and make you feel awesome. It can also sometimes make you feel not so awesome. And so that took a little while to adjust to and get used to. As we know, like if you were to eat like a bag of candy or something like that, like you're not going to feel so well afterwards. At least most people probably won't. And so I had to learn about the different types of carbohydrates. I don't think I really knew or understood that fruit has a lot of different sugars, not a lot of different sugars, but it has, two different sugar sources in it. And some fruits have more glucose in them. Some fruits have more fructose in them. So it was a little bit of a learning curve, just like going on any diet. You go on a keto diet and you're like, shit, I didn't know that had carbs in it. Or, I didn't realize I was eating that many calories. You have to sometimes go, oh my God. Or sometimes you have, too much MCT oil or too much oil and you end up in the bathroom type thing. So there's all these little things that we have to learn as we go into a diet protocol. As far as like my feeling doing just about everything is improved, but again, it's really hard to just link everything right to diet. I don't feel comfortable just doing that, because like I always feel good. I've felt good for a long time. I'm somebody that I don't sleep great, but I probably am down for 6 or 7 hours or so. I do wake up and in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom and stuff like that, but like that hasn't changed. That's been the same. Libido and all these other things, and just like drive during the day and stuff like that. I'd say maybe my drive during the day is like a little higher, almost like I'm on like a little bit of caffeine all day, which I don't even have caffeine. So yeah, I feel, and I am producing more content than normal, which I already produce a lot of content. So yeah, I do feel like the carbohydrates, or that fast acting energy, is giving me a little bit more like pep in my step. I do know for some people that carbohydrates can really slow them down. They're like, oh man, I ate, lunch or whatever, and I got really tired. What I would challenge people with on that is to actually see if it's carbohydrates, or if it's a combination of carbohydrates and protein, or if it's a combination of carbohydrates and fats. What I've noticed with this diet is that uh, when it comes to carbohydrates and protein, that can slow me down. Like if I had some carbs in the morning and some protein, I mean, it kind of just depends on what I had. If I had some sort of meat or something like that, I'm not going to want to exercise. But if I had like egg whites or something, that might be a little bit more agreeable with me. I did mention earlier about cravings, and because you are not always eating as much protein, or like I don't have protein usually in the beginning part of the day, the cravings that you have are insane on this diet. They're actually like really amazing. And I've never been on a diet before where I craved chicken breast. I've never been on a diet before where I was just craving, the only thing I'm craving is like meat and potatoes. So that's rare. And I've had a lot of other people report the same thing. It's almost like it puts you in like almost like a little bit of a trance for foods that you need and foods that are good for you, because you are, for certain periods of time, depriving yourself of some of that food. But yeah, in terms of like just feeling good and feeling better, I mean, I feel good, but like I said, I don't feel comfortable in just like saying right off the bat, like I feel, so much better, doing this diet, and everyone else needs to try it. Again, it's an experiment. I'm having a good time with it. It feels fun for me. And it's a protocol where you get to just eat a lot, which is the most exciting thing to me. But again, there's other protocols that you can do, and there's other things you can follow where you're feeling like you're eating a lot. As you mentioned, with the vegetables that you consume, or that some people will, go a little bit more keto, and they feel very full off of that because the protein is very satiating and the fats are like insanely satisfying. And so so I just feel like right now that this diet has, because it has like a lean protein, so I get like a good assortment of meat. I'm also having a lot of variation with starches, a lot of variation with vegetables, and a lot of variation with fruit. I haven't really eaten this way really ever. I guess when I was doing like keto, maybe like I ate that way a little bit.